I was in the latter part of my 20s and so was my wife. My career was off to a great start. We built our first home and just had our daughter in 2009. During this time I was in my lovely security bubble, not knowing about its impending burst that would soon happen. I am not going into all of the details of why my wife may have cheated. At the end of the day, it was her choices which led us to where we are at today. I want to get back to my story. My story is probably similar to that of a lot of yours, but this day has some pretty fucked up twists and turns. During my wife's affair, we grew far apart from one another. We both harbored resentment towards each other, but the only difference was she was the one having an affair. I didn't find out about her affair until September of 2013, but knew there was something off long before then. To my surprise, the truth ended up being much more in-depth than what I thought at the time. My ordeal really began when a new coworker started at my wife's place of work. The way she talked about this guy put up flags, but it was hard for me to prove anything because this was her co-worker. I vividly remember asking A, my wife, about B, her affair partner, and of course she would flat out deny anything and would even express displeasure, such as verbally saying, "You, that's gross." During her affair our sex life pretty much dried up and her excuse would be, "I'm having problems down there." I had red flags going up everywhere. She had your typical common cheater symptoms as well: locked phone, which she took everywhere, little sex, and this I don't give a crap. In fact, there were times I had accused her of having an affair, and her response would be, "If you're going to accuse me, I might as well do it." I had watched my wife fall in love with this man right in front of my eyes. There was one day that stuck out to me that I clearly remember. My wife's work was throwing an appreciation day and my mother-in-law had told me about it and invited me to go. I wasn't really sure what this was all about, but I guess they wanted to make her feel appreciated for all of the work she did there. The real reason for this event was probably much more sinister. Her affair partner B was the host and even had a prepared speech. I vividly remember as he walked up to the microphone and pulled out his prepared speech. My heart was beating a million miles a second and I could feel the sweat starting to form after each word that came out of this man's mouth. I couldn't make a scene because this was her place of work and a lot of work people were there as well as other people. I remember looking at her face as he was reading this speech, and she had that look of bliss and love. Her face was getting red after each charming compliment he gave my wife. I was naive, and I knew something was going on. Before this day she's arranged for us to all meet together to get things such as ice cream. She had the capacity to put us in social situation to be near each other, as if they were going on dates together. Frankly, this was weird and doesn't seem like a common thing for cheaters to do. At the time her excuse was that we needed new friends and him and his wife were great people, and we should do things together. This was obviously a poor attempt for them to hang out together openly even amongst the spouses they were screwing over. All of these flags festered and I knew I had to expose them but wasn't sure how. They were able to conceal their relationship effortlessly because they worked together. My wife had told her parents of my accusations against her, and they started saying I was just jealous of B and I was very insecure. Let's just say that after this I didn't want to be around them much anymore. I'm going to hit the fast forward button to the week before DDY. It was ironic that during this time my aunt was going through something similar with her husband. We talked a bit, and she had bluffed him saying she knew everything and to just come out with it. This seemed to have worked for her, so I thought, what the hell. I had access to my wife's phone records which had this guy's number all over it. They texted and spoke at all hours of the day. I had approached her with these records before, and she got upset at me saying I was insecure and the texts and calls were only work-related. When my DDY arrived I remember having a restless sleep the night before. I felt like I was on a mission, and it was a day of build-up and anticipation. After work that nice summer day, I went to the store and bought an ice-cold 6-pack. Now by the time I arrived home she was there already. I remember how I played out this scenario in my head of how I was going to act, and what I was going to say. I stormed off through the door visibly shaken that day and didn't say a word to her. I brought the beer over to the counter, pulled one out and popped the cap off. I firmly asked her if there was something she needed to tell me. She quickly dismissed this. I told her I was able to get all of her texting records from Verizon and told her she had some explaining to do. I then said, "You had sex with B." Her face went completely white, then quietly mumbled, "Yes." My heart at this point was racing. It felt like somebody had put a dagger into my chest and twisted away. She dropped to the ground after she said this, and I drug her to the couch and laid her down. At this point I was sure she was acting so she could collect her thoughts on how she's proceed. I stepped outside and made a call to B, who did pick up. My first words that I found that came out of my mouth were, "So you like banging my wife?" He quickly froze and heard a little hesitation. I quickly denied my question. I stormed back into the house and told him he told me everything. I then told A to tell him I know and handed her the phone. She mumbled a few words and acknowledged they had been exposed. At this point I had felt like and finally conquered. With all the suspicion and red flags I had for some time, I was able to finally prove it. Just as much as I was crushed, I was also happy to have this all exposed. Little did I know that at this point I would only receive bits and pieces and not get the full truth for some time. My wife stuck to a pretty scripted story and minimized the whole ordeal. She had claimed they had sex only one time and she stopped it after recognizing how wrong it was. They had unprotected sex, which she told me up front. She stuck to this story for some time, and I knew it was bullshit. During this time I also had a fallout with her parents and sister. They were trying to get my wife to leave me for B, which convoluted things even more. Not only was I betrayed by my wife but by her whole family. I quickly cut off connections to them and never wanted to speak to them again. The week after I found out, I quickly packed my bags and headed to my mom's house. I told her I wanted a divorce. My daughter was still pretty young and had just entered kindergarten. My heart ached for her, and I knew that leaving her so young would probably affect our relationship. I decided to go back to my house but sleep on the couch. At this point my wife was constantly throwing herself at me, wanting to have sex all of the time. Being starved out of sex, I took her up on each of those offers, which I know is kind of weird but still fulfilled my sexual desires, so to me it didn't matter, even though I was hurt and pissed about it all. When I came back to my house, I told her I was only there for our daughter and nothing more, and didn't want to try to reconcile our marriage. I told her that was my deal breaker. It seemed like her only response to the friction I was giving was to try and have more sex. I went to a divorce attorney for a consultation and put down $1,500 to start proceedings for a divorce. My wife was very unhappy about that, and tore mailed papers up she had received from my lawyer. During this time I had found a local church and spoke to the pastor there, and a lot of other people about my situation. Many of them were in the "try to reconcile your marriage" boat, and instead of listening to my intuition went ahead and listened to the noise. I guess this may have been better because I can say, at least I tried. Soon after I found out my wife was enrolled to do one of those warrior dashes. She slept over her parents that night, so she claimed. To this day I'm not sure of the real story. She came back from this race and somebody had frames this fucking thing where she put it on our mantle and had to look at it every day. Something was fishy with her story, and remember looking at the event pictures and combing through them to find my wife participating with her affair partner. I printed the pics and showed her evidence that she couldn't run or deny. She had a canned excuse ready to go, saying her parents set that up with B and she knew nothing about it. She claimed he was just there when she arrived. This was obviously a line of bullshit. I confronted her mom on this, and her mom told a very different story, saying she never took her there, and she took a taxi. There were obvious lies going around I still don't even know to this day. At the time, the thing that most bothered me was the physical aspects of the affair. Taking focus off the physical stuff, I had asked her one day if she loved him. Her response was, "I thought I did." This was one of the most crushing things to hear. Around this time my wife unlocked her phone to act more transparent. One night we had gone out for a few drinks, and she passed out and left her phone on the counter. I went through some things and went to the trash of old voicemails. She must have forgotten to delete these because there were messages from B in there. I remember playing these messages and the feeling that overwhelmed me listening to him say things like, "Hey honey, I just hope you have a great day today. Talk to you soon.